Uber just came out with a unique new feature that allows you to see or predict the price of a ride in a different area. You can see here, pretty much like I just said, Uber will let you see average fares and wait times for different cities. The company will give you new details about travel in 10,000 cities globally through its app. This is a new feature. This has not happened or changed on my app yet. This is something they're probably rolling out, You can see that I'm going to show you this first. You can see if I type in anything, I can see, let me wait for a second. So you can see how this looks. I'm going to just kind of scroll here on this like GIF. But I can basically go to any city, enter in any kind of whatever, and I can predict this. So for example, like if I'm in Paris, 35 minutes, it's going to be 16 to 34 euros to go to get a ride, right? And it's a thing right down here. Search in a different city. So that's what it looks like, right? I'm curious to see what do you think about this. I don't know. I kind of get it. I kind of don't. I think overall it's a good idea. It doesn't hurt, right? Because you can see here that the company said it wants to give people who are planning trips or vacations more visibility into how much it will cost to book Uber rides when they get there. I can see that, in the sense that if you are traveling, you're like, how much are Uber's going to be? Because remember, Uber is fully, for the most part, international. Lyft only exists in the United States and Canada. At least to the exact on this video. I think they probably will roll out to other areas, but Uber's really the true international ride-sharing app. And the update will give people access to fare and wait time details in approximately 10,000 cities globally. It apparently just rolled out, at least at the time this video. Hasn't happened yet, right? And to do it, as you can see, you just select the destination box in the Plan Your Trip tab, scroll down to search in a different city. There, it will autofill some popular choices or allow you to type in your own destination. This big thing they mentions the Summer Olympics, which are happening like very, very soon, at least at the time of this video. It's happening in Paris. And I can see that this could be an advantage, right? That Uber used Paris as an example of a type of city in which people would be more interested in gaining more insight about travel. And you can see here, after selecting Paris, you can book a virtual, quote-unquote, car trip from any two locations to see how long the ride will last. Or you can request more information about average fares and wait times. And lastly, which is very simple and easy to do, you can also reserve a ride several days in advance. The main synopsis, the main idea, is that Uber said it wants to take the guesswork out of travel. Let me know what you think in the comments. I've done a lot of videos, probably like 20 plus, about all the different features Uber has released, right? Every single time it releases a new feature, I do a video about it. Sometimes I'm like, that one's all right. Sometimes I'm a huge fan of it. It really depends, and everywhere in between. This one, I feel like for the most part, it's good, right? It doesn't hurt. I gotta say though, and I think we've all been there, or even in, LA here, which I've lived for a while, sometimes I just never know. I think one is that, like, if I'm gonna go to order an Uber or Lyft, even if I'm like, all right, it normally is $15, let's say with a given roll of the dice, it's a higher surge than normal. Something is going on, an event's happening. The Olympics, for example, in Paris are happening. I don't know how well or smart it is. I know it seems like a spectrum, but I don't know how well or smart it is to be like, just letting you know, the surge is gonna be crazy, so we're actually gonna say it's gonna be 30 euros as opposed to 15. So I don't know if it's gonna estimate that, because there's been some times here in LA when it's typically $15 and it's 28 for no reason, right? But I will say, I think at least it's a kind of a cool way for you to kind of estimate and plan in advance. I feel like, though, it's almost one of those inevitable things where if you're there, you kind of almost inevitably like, you know what, I'm stuck. If I've spend $20 for a euro, I know I'm going to spend that no matter what, even if it's supposed to be 5 or 10. But I think this could be a cool feature for traveling, right? That, like, say if I'm traveling and I have to get an Uber or whatever, I can easily, kind of plan in advance to kind of predict or see, because there's been some times, I remember when I went to Costa Rica, where I thought, I'm just going to get an Uber. Turns out, as a side note, at least unless it has changed since I was in Costa Rica, everybody hates Uber in Costa Rica. I remember looking at it, I'm not making this up, it was like in American dollars, if I had to convert it, I think it was like $1 or $2 for a 10-minute ride. And I remember being like, okay, $1 or $2, and that's why they said no one likes Uber. And I remember it was like a 10 or 15 minute wait for this Uber. Taxis were way better, way more efficient in Costa Rica. Way better than Ubers, right? And maybe, let's say, if I was traveling to somewhere again, I could use this feature being like, you know what? Should I do taxis? Should I do Ubers? If it's going to be on average a 15-minute wait in this area, maybe I'm better off just calling a taxi, because that may be more efficient and a lot easier to get around, right? So there's a lot of different perspectives you can have when it comes to this, because of course, I don't think it's absolutely foolproof in the sense that I know Google, for example, in case you didn't know, with Google Maps, it has a similar feature where you can predict the time. And it's kind of similar to this, where I could say like, hey, Google, I'm going to be in, I don't know, Atlanta next week. I'm going from here to here. I have to drive. How long does it typically take? And Google typically will say, hey, based off all the data we have, it's going to take anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour and 15. And you're like, all right, well, that's a pretty big spectrum, but that's because it's really tough to estimate if there's traffic, if there's not, right? And I think this is kind of similar on par with that. But even at the end of the day, it doesn't cost any extra money to do this feature. It's not like it affects your ride-sharing experience theoretically. It's more of a cool way to predict the wait time and the price you're going to spend on a potential Uber when traveling.